Hey, 6th grade, you are starting lesson 9 today, and lesson 9 is 5 days long, and it's all on adding and subtracting decimals. So today is our introduction lesson, and it's going to introduce you to adding and subtracting decimals. So let's get started. First, make sure your book is on page 92. If it is not, pause this video and go get it. If it is, we'll start by reading the problem at the top here. So this says, Z wants to make 2 liters of pink lemonade for a party. She squeezed the 8 lemons she had and got 0.375 liters of lemon juice. She had 0.35 liters of cranberry juice and 1.2 liters of water. How much lemonade can she make? How much more or less than 2 liters will she have? So in this one, notice there are 2 questions. First thing we have to mention is, or answer is, how much lemonade can she make? The second question is, how much more or less than 2 liters will she have? All right, so first off, let's go back, circle some of the things that are important in the problem. So Z wants to make 2 liters of pink lemonade. That's her goal. And she has different ingredients to make it. So from her 8 lemons, she got 0.375 liters of lemon juice. She already had 0.35 liters of cranberry juice, and she had 1.2 liters of water. We're going to use that information to answer both questions. Now, here is your job. Your job is going to be to start by working on A through F with the video paused on your own. So as you work on them, if it says, how can you, for example, you're going to have to write a sentence or 2 explaining how to do it. Also, if you get stuck, you give it your best shot. And when you watch the video is when you go back and you make corrections. You do have permission, if you're absolutely stuck, you can kind of watch the video and for that question if you're absolutely stuck, rather than waiting until you're done. All right, get started. Work on A through F now. Restart the video when you're ready. Go. All right, so in A it says, how can you estimate the amount of lemonade Z can make? So I'm going to answer this by saying I would round the different ingredients. So I would say I would round the ingredients and add. So here's what I would round them to. So 0.375 is about half. It's about 0.5. 0.35 is also about half. And 1.2 is about 1. And then what I would do is I would add up my rounded numbers. So I would add up half plus half plus 1, and that is about 2 liters. Okay, so that's how I would estimate. Now, you might have rounded slightly differently, but if you got stuck on this one, that's okay to change your answer. Now, just so you know, how does this help your answer? Well, I know at the very least, when I add up my ingredients, my answer has to be close to 2 liters. All right, so that gives me a head start. Now, B says, how can you read the amount of each ingredient in words? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down each ingredient and write it down as words. So the 0.375 is read as 375 thousandths. All right, I could fit thousandths here. By the way, I know it's thousandths because there are 3 decimal digits. And I always think 1,000 has 3 zeros. That's how I remember that 3 decimal digits is thousandths. All right, next, I'll do the next one. What was it, 0.335? So 0.35 can be read as 35 hundredths. And by the way, I always know that's hundredths because 100 has 2 zeros. And 35 hundredths has 2 decimal digits. So that's a cool trick to remember its hundredths. And the last one was 1.2. So 1.2, since it has a whole number, can be read 1 and 2 tenths. And I know that 0.2 is 2 tenths because 10 has 1 0 and there's one decimal digit, so that's how I know it's tenths. All right. So remember, anytime if you have to correct mistakes, pause the video and correct your mistakes and then restart the video. Now C says, how can you convert these different amounts to thousandths? Well, to convert any decimal to thousandths, like the first one here, is already thousandths, right? So the 1 and 2 tenths we can convert to thousandths just by adding 2 zeros after it. And the 35 hundredths we can convert to thousandths by adding 1 0 after it. So when I explain that, I would say 375 thousandths is already thousandths. For 35 hundredths, just add a 0 to get 350 thousandths. And then for 1 and 2 tenths, add 2 zeros to get 1 and 200 thousandths. All right. So if you have it in your own words but have it correct, you don't have to change yours. If you have a mistake, please pause the video and fix your mistake. Now D says, how can you write an addition expression to make sure the place values line up? So if I were to write an addition expression, I would write the problems vertically. And vertically just means when you write an addition expression up and down, and I would make sure my decimal points are lined up. If you line up your decimal points, you're going to make sure your place values lined up. So now I'm going to explain that. So how can I write an addition expression so my place values lined up? Is first, I would write the problem vertically. Okay. Second, I would make sure my decimals were lined up. If you do that, then you'll get the right answer. Now E says, write the sum that represents the total amount of lemonade. So this is one where you're going to have to figure it out. Now, if you didn't figure it out yet, you might not have room on this page, or if you do, that's fine, or you get a piece of paper. I want you to actually pause the video and do the addition problem. So just so you know, it's going to be 0.375 plus 0.350 plus 1.200. That's the addition problem you should be solving for problem E. If you did, you could just watch me solve it now. If you didn't, pause the video and do that addition problem now before I do it. Then you can restart it. All right, so let's see how you do. So notice you keep your decimals lined up. That helps line up our thousandths place here, our hundredths place, and our tenths place, and our ones place. Okay, it keeps them all lined up for you. So when I add up the thousandths, I have 5. When I add up the hundredths, 7 and 5 is 12. Right, the 2 carry the 1. And when I add up those, I have 2, 5, 8, 9. So I have 9 in the tenths place. And I add up my ones, I have 1 whole. So for E, I have 1.925, or 1 and 925 thousandths liters of lemonade. Okay, if you had that right, good. If not, please pause the video and make your correction. Now last, it says, how can you find the difference between that number and 2 liters? Remember, we just answered this first question, how much lemonade can she make? And now we have to say how much more or less than 2 liters will she have? Well, she has a little less than 2 liters, so we're going to subtract to figure out how much less. So if you did not subtract this with 2 liters, you're going to want to pause the video and do that now. And when you're done with the video, you can restart it. If you did do it, then you can watch as I do it now. Now, if you're a little bit stuck, you should make sure you write 2 liters as 2.000 minus 1.925 to keep your decimals lined up. Okay, now I'm going to do the subtraction problem so you can check and see if you're correct. Remember, if you didn't do this yet, do it before I go over it, because otherwise you won't learn from it. So now I can't do 0 minus anything, so I have to borrow from the 2 and make it a 1, which makes that a 10. Borrow from that 10, make it a 9, which makes that a 10. Borrow from that 10, make it a 9, which makes that a 10. Now I'm going to do 10 minus 5, which is 5. 9 minus 2 is 7. 9 minus 9 is 0. Bring your decimal down, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So our answer, how can you find the difference between that number and 2 liters? Well, you would subtract and find she has, what was it, 0.075? She has 0.075 liters less than 2 liters. She's a little bit less. All right, but it's pretty close. All right, now, anything on this page that you need to fix, you can pause before we move on to the next page. If you're caught up and you're ready to go, let's go on to page 93. Okay, now, we're going to read through some stuff here, and we're going to show you our subtraction problem. So, this says, you can see what you know about adding and subtracting whole numbers can help you add and subtract decimals to the thousands. The important thing is that you have to make sure you are adding the same place values. You can use a place value chart to help you keep your columns lined up. Now remember our numbers before in our addition problem when we were adding up 0.375, 0.35, and 1.2. They are saying is you can keep them lined up like that because the 3 is in the tens place, 7 is in the hundredths, 5 is in the thousandths. For 0.35, it's 35 hundredths, 3 is in the tenths, 5 is in the hundredths, and then you add a 0 in the thousandths. For 1 and 2 tenths, you have 1 in the ones, 2 in the tenths, and then you add 2 zeros. That way you are adding up all of your thousandths to get 5, all of your hundredths to get 12, but you wrote the 2, carried the 1. Then you'd add up all of your tenths to get 9, and you'd add up all of your ones to get 1. Okay? Now, on the next section it says, when you see the add-ins in a place value chart, you can see that you can add zeros before the first digit in a decimal or after the last digit after a decimal to help you keep the place value straight. You would get a completely different answer if you ignored the decimals and added 375 plus 35 plus 12. And it says the same is true for subtraction. So remember in our problem when we had to do 2 minus 1.975. So remember, since it's 2 ones, it goes in the ones place, and then you fill in zeros in the decimal places. Minus 1.925. Okay? So, do you have to do a place value chart? No, but it helps you keep everything lined up. Now, in the last part you're going to do is your reflection. So this is where it says, what is the difference between adding whole numbers and adding decimals? Now, I want you to write about it. I want you to think about it. I want you to think, if I were to show you these two problems, let's say you had 3 plus 72, you would just do 72 plus 3, add them up, right? But if you had 0.003 plus 7.2, you would add them slightly differently. 0.003 plus 7.200. And you would get a different answer. All right, so now think about that when you're writing your reflection. You don't have to write this down. I'm just showing you here so you can think about it. But the question says, what is the difference between adding whole numbers, which I did here, and adding decimals? This should take about 2 to 3 sentences. Now I want you to pause the video, write your reflection, and then restart the video. Go. All right, so you should have your reflection written. You should have your answer to number 1. It's going to be 2 to 3 sentences. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to write. You're not going to have to watch me write every letter because I'll speed this up a little bit. I'm going to write what I think the difference is. You do not have to have my same answer, but if I have any ideas you want to add, feel free to add them to your answer. So the first difference is this. I said first, with whole numbers, you just line everything up to the right. And what I mean is in 27 plus 3 plus 300, you would line everything up, your 27 with your 3 and your 300, because that keeps your ones digits lined up. Okay? That's what I meant in my first sentence. Now, how is that different from decimals? Well, that's what I'm going to write next. So I said, for my second point, I said, with decimals, you line up the decimal points and fill in zeros. So that's what I just said the difference. Whole numbers, you line everything up to the right. Decimals, you just line up the decimal points. You do not need to have my answer. Yours might be better than mine. But if there's anything you want to add to yours, feel free to do so. Either way, guess what? You are done with me. Thank you for watching, and peace out.